Could you give us an introduction of yourself?
Yeah, I'm Lon Welsh. I'm the founder of Ironton Capital. We're based in Denver. We've been around for about 2 years. We have about 70 million of assets under management.
Awesome. And firstly, it's so wonderful to have you for our first meeting of the Capital Alliance. What were your thoughts on the Capital Alliance and the programming?
Well, it's fantastic. It's a relatively small group of people who all have funds similar to mine. Some are more on the stock market side, some are more with options trading, and there's several that are just like ours on the real estate side. So to my surprise, I actually learned almost as much from the guys doing options trading as I learned from the guys that are doing real estate just like us. But I think the most important thing, though, is just the level of idea sharing and how relevant it was, because we're so similar in our businesses. I've got like a whole stack of ideas I'm going to go back and be able to implement right away.
And could you share like some specific takeaways that you know i- in your time at the Capital Alliance that you learned and you think would be implementable for your business?
Gosh, there's a ton of them. So, most of the growth that we've had initially has been through friends and family and referrals, and we're in the introductory stages really of trying to use social media marketing to expand the reach to people who don't already know us, like us, and trust us. And I was really delighted to find that a lot of my peers in this group are many stages ahead of me in that type of marketing, and they all had like a whole set of ideas of, I tried this, that didn't work, don't waste your time on it. This worked out pretty well, but be careful of that. Do this when you do it. Or this is one that I thought was like relatively easy to implement, although it took slightly longer to get results. But not only was like a stack of ideas, it's like a stack of guardrails around them, like, watch out for this, with some expectation setting, like how long will it take for it to start to work. So that for me was probably the largest challenge I was hoping to solve with this group, was to figure out how to fuel the next stage of our growth. I got a lot of really actionable ideas on that. I think an important secondary idea that came out is that there's a couple funds that are similar to us, but we're not really competitors by any means. But we were able to exchange ideas on underwriting. Have you looked at this vendor? Well, actually, yeah, I invested with them. I wish I wouldn't have. You should avoid that, and here's why. So it's just some avoiding minefields in and of itself can be pretty valuable. But there's also some situations where, commonly, at least on the real estate side, the more that you tend to invest as a fund of funds, the better economics you can typically negotiate. So if I can get two or three of us in this group to negotiate together, we can get to scale to get better economics for the three of us, as opposed to doing it all independently. Then we can pass along better returns to our LPs, and that makes us more attractive. So the benefits here, I think, come in a couple different buckets. A third that I think might be important, that I think one or two of our guys were newer in the process. They're still kind of scaling from an entrepreneurial standpoint. How do I hire? How do I set up systems? What are the processes? How do I set up cybersecurity? And I think, some of us who've been at this a little longer were able to give some feedback to them just on business 101 and just scale up. So that wasn't a benefit to me, but I was really glad I was able to give back on that. So I think, depending on where you're at in the cycle, you might be able to benefit from multiple different facets of the group.
Awesome. That was very thoughtful answer, Lon. What would you say to like other money managers and asset managers who are thinking of potentially joining a group like Capital Alliance? What would your recommendation or advice be for them?
Well, I think that if you've gotten as far in your development that you've kind of developed an investment thesis that seems like it works for you, and you're either struggling with, I need to build a process to scale this up, I need to figure out how to raise more capital more efficiently, or I need more efficient processes to deal with the overall system that I've created. I think those are going to be the three types of entrepreneurs that probably benefit the most from a group like this. There might be other benefits that could come from as well, but those are like obvious. Like if you have those needs, you're going to get a lot out of this group.
Right. And how do you see the vision of Capital Alliance going forward, and what would be the biggest unlocks for you that Capital Alliance as a group can solve?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just how integrated the community is in their interests and their needs and their frustrations and sort of the joys. So this is the fourth CEO group that I've been a part of in the past. So I was part of a group called Vistage, which was just different CEOs in different industries. And from a process standpoint, we learned a lot from each other. And socially, it was fantastic. I loved everybody that I met. But I didn't get any actionable business intelligence because we were all so separated in our industries. when I ran a large real estate brokerage, I was as part of a mastermind group of other guys that owned brokerages in different markets, and that was much more aligned, and that helped out a lot more. But even then, the strategies that each of our different brokerages pursued were variant enough that the actionability of the dialogue wasn't as meaningful or specific. Um, I am part of Collective Genius, and I find that's going to be a pretty useful group, but it's pretty broad across a bunch of different real estate disciplines. Where this group is just around, we're trying to raise and place capital. What we're investing in, like if you're doing an option strategy, that doesn't inform me anything. But there's a lot of other things about marketing and process, even if you're just investing in options, that a real estate guy can definitely benefit from. So I think the specificity of this group is what's going to really give the large benefit.
Awesome. And Lon, my last question would be, um, how can Capital Alliance play a role in your growth? And what would you say to people who are confused or, at the fence about joining a community like this, where it's not about shallow networking, but it's about deep connections?
Yeah, so probably what I'd take a look at is some of the other networking types of communities. It might be like a hotel auditorium with 150 or 200 people in a room, and you've got a presenter that's broadcasting information, and you can pick up a lot of really useful information if you pick the right seminar to go to, but it's not much of a deep dialogue. This is the polar opposite, where at least with this particular session, there's 7 of us sitting in the living room for 2 days. For cumulatively 12 or 14 hours. So the depth that we can get into is going to be radically different than a really large scale group. So I think it's going to be a really high investment of your time, extremely high investment of your energy, and extremely high return on your investment in the specifics of what you can get back. And then, all right, here's 3 things I can probably do in the next month that'll actually move the needle.
Awesome.